Hi, how you doing? Hope you had a good time in church on Sunday. Whatever site you was at, whatever meeting you was at, we had a great time in Windsor. We had our fifth meeting there. We're looking at around this whole subject of trying to, what do we need to do to create a community where people feel they can come and belong. Looking at how the key to that really is developing friendships. We're looking at some Bible examples of friendships. We're looking at an example of Jonathan and David. How Jonathan, even though David took his spot on the throne, because Jonathan was destined to be king, how Jonathan didn't get resentful or bitter against David, but how he stayed loyal to God and loyal to David, how he was a good friend, he was an encourager, he saved David's life, he didn't try and deter David away from his destiny, even though it affected him and his life. We're looking at the friends of Job, how Job lost everything, his health, his wife, his kids, everything, and how his friends responded to that, the good things that they did and the not so good things that they did. How when Job was really sick, his friends just come and sat with him for 7 days, 7 nights and didn't say anything. And how sometimes we feel to be a good friend, we've got to solve everyone's situation, we've got to save everyone, but often what our friends really need is us just to stay present, not to shrink back or disappear. Even though we might feel powerless, what they really need is just our presence and us comforting them. We looked at the relationship between Naomi and Ruth. How often we can think when we think about people that could potentially be our friend, how we can often think that it's got to be people that are like us or in our same sort of life stage. But how Naomi and Ruth were completely different generations. Ruth didn't even believe in the same God as Naomi to begin with. They come from different parts of the country, perhaps different cultures, but how they forged a great relationship. Was also looking at how friendship takes, firstly it takes a good friend is an encourager, how they're present with you in difficult times, and how they make sacrifices. Jesus said in John 15, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for oneself. And just talking about how Jesus was the greatest friend, because he ultimately sacrificed everything for us. And just looking at what sacrifices can we make to be good friends. And also looking at how Jesus was often misunderstood. We look at the story of the tight friendship that he had with Mary and Martha and Lazarus, and how Lazarus got critically ill, and how Mary and Martha just sent for Jesus and just thought he was just going to show up quick as a flash and just solve everything for them. But he come along 4 days later. By then Lazarus had died, he'd been buried. And just looking at how we don't often, how sometimes we can think that friends should respond like we would respond, and just how sometimes that can cause friction and tension in relationships, and some people that God wanted to be our friend that we've kind of given up on because we felt that they didn't do what we felt they should have done. And just looking at how Jesus come like 4 days later, and Martha was like, Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died, but God had a plan and Jesus had a plan. And just not to give up on friendships because maybe they don't respond to us how we respond. So perhaps think about your relationships. Think about maybe the people that God's calling you to be a friend to. Maybe think about people that have been a good friend to you in the past, about what they did, and maybe they went above and beyond what you might have done or what anyone else has done before. Maybe talk about that in your groups. Share stories. Maybe think about what sort of friend you are. Do you feel like you're a friend that kind of avoids your friends when you feel like you can't solve their situation? Do you feel like you're an encourager of your friends, or do you think you're competing with your friends? So often it's easy to have good friendships with people that are not kind of going in the same direction with us, but once competitiveness comes in, resentment and bitterness and jealousy comes in, things can get more complicated. So think about your relationships, think about your friendships. Maybe you don't feel you've got many friends, just maybe think about what you need to do to find some, to go and be a friend to somebody else. Maybe that's joining a serving group, getting involved in a small group. Perhaps you already are watching this in a small group, but getting involved in serving, maybe going out on socials, just becoming more vulnerable, and just dropping those defences down and maybe just going to be a good friend to somebody else. Plenty of things to look at. I encourage you to look at the story of Ruth and Naomi in chapter 1 of Ruth. Look at Job and his friends in chapter 2 of Job. Look at the relationship between David and Jonathan in 1 Samuel chapter 18, verses 1 to 4. Just have a look at those verses. God might speak to you about something else that you can take out of that. But I hope you have a great time together. Enjoy. I hope God blesses your time together and you have a great evening or wherever you meet. Have a great week. Goodbye.